Hey, welcome to the official instant reaction to today's joint practice between the Niners and Vikings. I'm Grant Cohn. That's David Liechty. He writes for all 49ers, acclaimed writer, and he was at today's practice. He lives out here in the Midwest. He drove over here and he saw everything. He actually got a better view than me. You were up in the stands. I was on the sideline. So we saw different things. We will cross-reference our observations. David, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you, brother, baby. It's good to be back. Been out all summer. Back in Minnesota, worked out perfectly to come through here. So this is an awesome opportunity. Had a fun day today. Can't wait to talk about it.
First impression, real quick, before we get into the specifics of the day. Wow, what a facility. I guess land is pretty cheap out here, and they went to town. It's honestly, the Vikings practice facility is nicer than Levi Stadium. I'm sorry, but it had to be said.
It does, and I'm not trying to brag too much, but as a guy that you've been to training camp forever, I've been going to training camp in Santa Clara for a while. It's a great fan experience. Families come out. They've got like concessions, apparel. They've got bean bags. They've got mini golf. They got, and even just the facility themselves is just, right. Yeah, I think Jed should take a page out of Ziggy Wilf's book if you can.
They have, okay, so there's an indoor facility, an outdoor facility with a Jumbotron, just in case. And they have four practice fields.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, and they honestly, they ran a tight ship. The staff there were really nice. I mean, they got everything's from parking. They've got people staffed. It's slick. It's a good run. And like I said, man, in Minnesota, they've had the Polads and the Wilfs. They got some wealthy owners here. So
yeah,
they spend money.
Well, with all these resources, you think they might win something eventually. All right, that's enough.
You might think that. Yeah.
So look, I've been watching Trey Lance all off season. After a while, it's like, it's almost like it's hard to judge progress because it's like trying to judge the growth of your brother or something. So I see you every day. But this was your first day seeing him in person this offseason. I'd love to hear your take on how he did.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the big thing that I saw was, I would even go on the things that I nitpicked. There were a couple of times where I thought he might have held the ball a little bit too long. He had a fumbled snap that was, all intents and purposes, seemed like it was on him. But more often than not, things that we saw on Friday, I think carried through camp here. He steps up in the pocket. I remember people had mentioned this a couple of times. He's keeping two hands on the ball. He's dipping his shoulder to evade pressure. He steps up. He has functional mobility. He's getting outside the pocket, making a play, setting his feet, not looking to run right away. In fact, I don't think today at all there was a play where Trey scrambled that was looking to scramble. And almost every single time, he's putting his team in a position to make something out of nothing on those plays. Now, that being said, so that, and then, everybody kind of talked about the 65-yard, the long pass to Danny Gray down the sideline, but there were other big gainers. That flip side of that is he was under pressure more than we would have liked.
Yeah,
if you want, he would have been taking hits. So
yeah, he would have. But what was nice about it is like, okay, so he was under pressure a lot. A lot of times when a quarterback's under pressure, they start making bad decisions. He didn't have any throws that were like almost picked or, he didn't do that. He was a game manager. He protected the football, but he also made big plays. I mean, they were doing a lot of move the ball stuff. And at the end, they had a 90-second drill where you had to go the length of the field, down one with 90 seconds and a timeout. He had 4th and 10 with like the game on the line, scrambled to his right, had a 30-yard completion to Debo. Like, that's something we haven't seen in a long time on this team.
And I'm glad you brought that up because all I heard last training camp was Trey was doing great, but in move the ball situations, in situational football. Okay. Right. And I saw a couple of people today kind of said, oh yeah, but in a regular game, they would have punted it. It's immaterial. And I felt like in these practices, these coaches do both to get together. They're talking about O'Connell and Shanahan, both are saying, hey, these are the kind of things we're wanting to see a little bit. It's not like there's like tons of secrets as they go through just in these situations. And I thought Trey did on that 4th and 10. He made a play when he had to. And I think you alluded to this. He had a tweet out. That is the difference. This isn't like Jimmy slander, but that is the difference between the Niners offense going forward post Jimmy and in previous iterations.
I think why some people chart the difference between move the ball periods and scripted. That's fair. I think what the idea is, you don't know what the coaches are trying to accomplish when they're scripting things. They're not necessarily trying to gain the most yards on that play. They might be trying to evaluate a given wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But in the move the ball period, theoretically, you're trying to move the ball. as best as you can. So that's a whole different exercise. And from what I've understood, like his completion percentage this year in the scripted portions is low. In the move the ball portions, it's very high. Yes. And that's what we saw in the preseason. And I think that's what we saw today.
Yeah. And I think some people have talked about it, whether or not he's more comfortable when I've said in rhythm when it's getting up to the line of scrimmage and going, or whether or not that's just because the defense doesn't have enough time to sit there and get set. Regardless, I think we have seen Trey really feel comfortable. And I think that's the other thing that I keep seeing. That was what you said. My number one thing on my notes was no turnover-worthy plays. Mm-hmm. Not every pass and placement was perfect, and I don't expect that from anybody, but there were no turnover-worthy plays, and he never looks panicky. His footwork, I think is vastly improved. I think that you never see him looking like he's, the fish out of water in those situations where he's looking to Kyle for a bailout. He's got it. He's controlled. He's calm, and I was impressed by that today.
I love how he steps up in the pocket. Mm-hmm. A lot of mobile quarterbacks like to back out, but he steps up. And I think the quarterbacks that back out, it's a bad habit from college. And those are the guys that get sacked a lot, even though they're quick and fast and shouldn't be getting sacked. Lance steps up. And it's like, if you have like an all out, you better be careful rushing Trey Lance. If you have just 4, pass rushers with no regard for like their rush lanes and they just go after him. Mm-hmm. I mean, there'll be scramble lanes up the middle all day and he'll kill you. So it's going to be interesting to see how defenses figure out what they can and can't do against this guy.
Well, and I think that's the thing is that what you've seen is that he can kill you on the run, but more often than not, we've seen him gather himself, reset his feet, and then he's looking to go downfield, and that's when the defenses are really screwed. And I think that's where Kyle, back before they drafted Trey, was talking about making defenses play 11 on 11. Now we're really seeing that come to fruition. And I think even if it's not in perfection on every play, the possibilities are really going to keep defenses honest. And I think they're going to be very dangerous when it all gets kind of gelling together.
And I feel like that mentality from a quarterback, an athletic quarterback, is rare. The guy who breaks the pocket, approaches the line of scrimmage, and slows down and wants to throw. Like, how many super athletic quarterbacks do that in the NFL right now? Like 4 or 5, and they're the best.
No, and I think and that's yeah. I think and I listen to a guy that I think a lot of people respect. JT O'Sullivan was talking about the exact same thing. Is that this guy does not seem like that? This for the longest time, everybody was talking about him as a project,
right?
And any 22-year-old is you're evolving in your trajectory to where you want to be, but Trey doesn't come off in his personality, his demeanor, and the way that he absorbs information from coaches as that project style of player. I think that he is more mature, between the ears and on the field right now than I think a lot of people expected him to be. And it's encouraging.
I'm just sort of getting to know his past. I don't know why I didn't dig into it deeper, but it's my first time in Minnesota, and I'm learning he's sort of like he's a lot like Kaepernick's story. Kaepernick's from Turlock, small town in the Central Valley. Lance is from a town called Marshall, which is like a sixth of the size of Turlock. It's 3 hours out of here. It's closer to like South Dakota. He's from the middle of nowhere.
It's farm country.
Yeah, he wanted to go to Minnesota, which frankly, he probably would have been the greatest quarterback in the history of the University of Minnesota. And they were like, we think you're a safety. We think you're a freaking safety. So this guy has had to really like overcome doubters since he was young. And then he goes to North Dakota State, sits for a year like he did here, just so he can, get his feet underneath him, and then has this remarkable. I'm not saying he's going to do that with the Niners, but that's been his history. Give him 1 year, and he has a mastery of what he's trying to do.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Grant. Actually, I was on the phone with the Marshall High School activities director yesterday. I'm lining up a interview with his high school football coach, and who's, I'm a Minnesota public school teacher, so easier for me to kind of pick up the phone and we can, but it is that like my old high school or college roommate was from Marshall. I went down there to his wedding years ago. I mean, it's in the sticks, but and that's where I think it's a little bit different than being in the Central Valley to a degree. Right. But he's always been a guy that's PJ Fleck doubted him, wouldn't give him a quarterback offer. And he has that stubborn confidence to say, you know what, I could have gone to D1.
Yep.
I'm not. I trust in myself. I'm confident in myself. And I know for a fact, talking with some other guys behind the scenes, that he believes very much in what he's going to do this year. So he's not worried.
He should be confident. He strikes me as confident. And again, what you see in these move the ball periods is that while he's very gifted and can make extremely difficult throws, there are so many easy throws that Kyle can scheme up for him like he did for Jimmy. We saw it today. How many screens every game is Trey going to throw to Debo? A few. I mean, there's going to be like 5 or 6 just gimme completions. His completion percentage is going to be not an issue, I don't think. And maybe the accuracy will be, but the completion percentage won't be.
And I'm not so much, like the completion percentage stuff to me, that's going to ebb and flow, like you said, based on the degree of difficulty of passes that Kyle's dialing up. But like you said, if Kyle really wants to go safe, which I don't think he necessarily has to do, they can go safe and be consistent. And I think that's what we saw. What it was encouraging. It seems like every time Trey gets on those naked bootleg situations, he doesn't waste any movement, and he gets free so quickly he's out of the pocket so quickly. It's effortless. He's move, he's catch, he's throw. He's not thinking, and you shouldn't. But like that is the kind of stuff that I felt like had been rumored that he wasn't good at.
Right.
And I think he's shown to be proficient at.
The way I look at this team is like, it just seems like anytime the Niners under Kyle on a really big game, he loses confidence in his quarterback and is like, I'm going to win in spite of you. Mm-hmm. And he can a lot of the time. If you're in that mode and that's your identity, I mean, Trey helps more than Jimmy does. Like once you have lost confidence in the guy passing the ball, well, Trey helps the run game. I mean, Trey gives you more. I mean, Kyle's confidence in Trey's arm may ebb and flow just like Trey's confidence in his arm ebbs and flow, at least early on. But once you go to that, let's win in spite of our quarterback mode, this is a better quarterback for that. You know what I mean?
And that's why I thought that the 4th and 10 today, let's just say, okay, let's just call it the 3rd and 10. Those are the kind of things where in 2019, Jimmy had good 3rd down conversions, but oftentimes those 3rd downs were in those 3rd and short, 3rd and intermediate. The 3rd and 10, the 3rd and long is something that's always been a little bit of a bugaboo. And so I think like those are the kind of things where you're like, all right, I'm feeling a lot more confident as somebody watching the 49ers with Trey under center in those situations.
My feeling with him too, at least at 22-year-old Trey, who's very inexperienced, every throw is a little bit of an adventure. So the check down could be a little high. The easy stuff could be a little bit labored. But then the impossible stuff, he makes look easy. Like the play on 4th and 10 today was like, hold on, how many quarterbacks in the world could do that? Like, I haven't seen that in a long time. So he still has a lot of growth to do, but clearly what Kyle's saying is like he's the kind of earnest hard worker who can't help but improve. And that's why they drafted him. As opposed to the other guy, I forget his name, who didn't call the Niners back ever in the offseason. I mean, it's so funny that why are the Niners getting rid of that other guy? Well, they had a big secret about him. It's sort of leaking out now. It's not so much about his skill set. It's about the work ethic.
It's so funny too, Grant, because there's some people going back and forth and acting like this is all like a new development. I mean, for years, I'm not going to go out and out the people. Like these reports have been coming and been simmering for a long time. And this is the thing, guys like George Kittle, guys like the company line guys, it's so good at spinning PR. Like everything is like hunky dory at all times.
Right.
Everything.
No big deal. It's
hilarious. He's a teammate. We'd run through a brick wall for him. I'm like, So
and yet they spent 3 first-round picks and a third just to get rid of him.
Right.
And not on Deshaun Watson or Matthew Stafford, on a 21-year-old from Marshall, Minnesota. Who's looking pretty good.
Okay, turn to the page.
So today we just focused a lot on Trey Lance and how well he looked. 11-16, he did look really good. That being said, the story of today was not necessarily how dominant the Niners offense was. He got sacked a lot, 4 times. And this offensive line, I got video of them one-on-one, but then the PR director from the Vikings said you can't post it. So that's just between me and God. But I have footage of them getting abused, and it's not good. So what did you see from the offensive line, and how do they fix this?
Well, today, from my perspective, they had them. The Niners owe Vikings need the ones were on that second field. So I think they're going to flip them tomorrow. Yeah. I think that it became very clear that Colton Nikivitz is
a guard.
If that's your plan B. Yeah, I don't know if Colton Nikivitz is a plan B for any of the other NFL teams in the league. And I think that's a really dangerous spot to be in. McGlinchey is going to be out, and we've said, go back and forth.
There's a reason they went to Tom Compton before McKivitz last year. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think that, and then Justin School, who back in 2019 was doing the swing stuff, and now you're just like, boy, I mean, if Jordan Mills allegedly, like you said, been looking better, but Then let's go, because if they have to roll out week 1, I don't care if it's the Bears, I don't care if it's the Chiefs, I don't care if you have to put McKivitz or School at right tackle. Trey Lance is a tough dude, and he's really good at evading pressure, but he's going to get hit. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we're looking at Nate Sudfeld.
He got hit Friday night.
Yep. On the knees. And as I said, I remember that night, I said, my God, they're playing with fire. McKivitz got put in a spin cycle. Then all of a sudden, or it might have been School.
They went empty formation on first down. I was like, oh my God, why are you doing this?
Yeah. And so that is real. Like today that was a refrain. A common refrain was, oh shit, Trey Lance is under pressure. And
sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that once Kyle gets into situations where, he gets defenses kind of keying in, and maybe guys that are a little bit more undisciplined off the edge, he can manipulate that and exploit that. But that being said, that's still kind of rose-colored lenses. I think this is a big issue, and they're going to need to get it resolved. And I hope McGlinchey can come back, but if not, it's going to be a problem.
See, that's what I want to talk about. I think a lot of people would say, well, McGlinchey's coming back. The right tackle, it's an issue now, but it's not really an issue. Well, all I know about McGlinchey is that he keeps getting hurt.
Yeah.
And he's getting older, and he was never great to begin with. He was decent, and now he's having setbacks. So I don't know how many games is Michael McGlinchey going to play this year. I don't know. They have to have a better plan than Colton McKivitz. I'd like to see Jordan Mills just get a look, because we've gotten an extended look at Colton McKivitz. Not good enough.
Well, and the problem is Jalen Moore is hurt too. They had some hopes with him being a guy that had versatility. One thing that the guy that's been getting rave reviews all camp is that rookie right guard Spencer Burford.
Say it.
And I will tell you this. Guys that I trust, and what I've been thinking is, my article, my first one back for a while with you, Grant, on a couple of days ago, I said in my 5 winners, the thing I said about Burford is, do not be surprised to see him move over to right tackle before 2023. Because if McGlinchey is either out now or has some prolonged, events that keep kind of seeing him in and out, I would much rather see a guy like Burford who has plenty of experience at OT. Granted, that's not the NFL. Let's get him reps now. We've seen what he can do at guard. You want to get consistency, but if that's who it's gonna be, I don't know. And maybe he gets exposed a little bit. He's young, he's raw in that regard, but what do you got to lose at this point? I would just pay attention to that.
I think it's a good call. I think there's a very real possibility that he's right now the third best offensive tackle on the team. Maybe the second best. I'm not a big Mike McGlinchey fan.
I know you're not.
Sorry, Mike. But I really like Spencer Burford, and I'm intrigued by Jordan Mills, although he's been cut a few times. He was a starter for at least 6 years.
Yeah.
And then, boom, street free agent. And everyone thinks he's washed up. Maybe he is. I don't know what the deal is, but all I know is I watched the one-on-ones, and he looks good to me. So I'd like to see him in a preseason game with some starters. Give him a chance.
Let's go.
And he made it past the first round of cuts, so he's doing something right.
He's here.
He's here.
You don't have that many other options, and I think that's where I'd like to see the Niners get creative. And I don't think Kyle's a guy that plays draft politics. I don't think he's a guy that sits there. I think he can. That's what I'm going to be watching these next couple of weeks, and I don't think we're going to get to see enough reps in live games to see that gets remedied. So,
what are you seeing from 71, the young left tackle in the Niners? You think he's got a future in the league? 71.
Oh, that guy. I wouldn't call him a scrub, but yeah, he's getting there, and I think
No, I'm just kidding. What about the left guard and the center? Banks and Brendel, 65 and 64.
I think Brendel from today. Now I wasn't watching this closely, and I defer to you on that one. For a couple people, they had a couple little rough reps there a little bit, but I do think that he'd been winning the job over Brunskill. I know Brunskill's a little bit dinged up. Banks has been looking good. I need to focus. I know focus a little bit more on Banks. I'm not going to sit here and make something up I didn't see today. But to be fair, I think it's the other day. I would say this. I think it was a better case scenario than I thought.
Yeah.
To have Banks and Burford playing well, and Brendel maybe playing a little bit better than I had expected, given his pedigree and the fact that he's been shopped around. But he's still not, again, right tackle and center. You can say what you want. Those aren't ideal situations for the 49ers to be in with a young quarterback.
What I see from Banks in one-on-ones is a guy who can't really anchor. But in 11-on-11s, what I see is pressure coming from the right, not the left. So maybe Banks is better, and when he has – you never have to block someone one-on-one. There's always people around you. Maybe he's a guard who needs people around. I don't know. I'm a little confused by Banks. I need to watch more of his film and games because I don't know what to make of him.
No, and I think that's what we're going to see. I mean, I'm going to focus on that a lot tomorrow. I was telling a couple people I was with today, I said, when they flip fields, that's my focus tomorrow. It's easy to watch Trey and kind of pay attention to what happens afterward. Right. But I'm really watching down in the trenches and just kind of taking a look at the what's going on at right and left guard, and I hopefully they bounce back.
Yeah, like when I have a choice, like what one-on-ones to watch, I always go to the O-line, D-line, because I feel like I need to learn about the Niners offensive line. I feel like I know about their wide receivers and their corner. Like I know about them pretty. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised, but every day I'm looking at Banks and Kinlaw. It's like, are you different today? Like, what does it look like? So that's what
I feel like it's easier in pass reps. I tell them to people on 11-on-11s. People are like, one position I find it really hard to evaluate is running back, because it just feels like the defensive line of both. Sometimes they're like, they know they can't really hit, like they can, but they can't. So it's like you almost saw some guys like they're in a place to make a play, and then they almost like up. Yeah. And then the ref's like, no, you're going to keep this going. And everybody's a little confused. So pass reps were a little bit easier to see who's winning, who's not. But
that's the tough thing about covering practices in the NFL. You get a much better feel for the pass game than the run game. And I've been covering Kyle Shanahan and Jim Harbaugh. Like, these are run teams. So sometimes you come out of camp being like, oh, this offense sucks. And then it's the best run game in the league. You're like, I didn't know. How did I not notice this? Well, they weren't really running the ball. How long until Jason Poe cracks the starting lineup? I was watching a little bit closer than you. Maybe he's a one-on-one guy. And in actual 11-on-11s, he's confused and can't pick up stunts and blitzes and stuff. But one-on-one, can't move him. I feel like it's just a matter of time before he's like the starting left guard or right guard or center. I don't know if he can snap the ball, but he can block. I'll tell you that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's what we're going to be watching tomorrow. And we know the starters aren't rolling on Saturday. So this is going to be, and Kyle's a guy that I think a lot of NFL coaches, they usually have some plan set that people think there's like competition sometimes, and there really isn't. Right. Like they got a good idea, kind of like the Darqueze Dennard cut. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody thought he was the starting slot, and I was like, that was a decision that was made.
Even today, Kyle's like, well, just because he was getting the first string reps, that doesn't mean
anything. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it means nothing to Kyle. Right. So it's like, they draft Donovan West UDFA, Poe UDFA, Zakel in the 6th, and then with Burford, it's going to be interesting. And I don't know if there's going to be enough reps to go around. And I think Poe's a practice squad guy. I
don't think anyone's going to sign Jason Poe based off the reports he's getting in training camp, which is nice for the Niners. But I do think he's got potential.
No, and I do too. And I think a lot of people are also excited about the fact that he's like this freaky athlete, and he's got a great story from a small school.
I like offensive linemen who are good athletes because, frankly, the disparity between them and D linemen in today's NFL is outrageous.
No, I'm cheering for the brother. Like and that's the thing. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's practice, because that's where I'm doubling down on my attention. But what was evident today is that right tackle is no bueno. I mean, it's just it is what it is.
Today, it's impossible to see everything, right? It's really hard.
You're multitasking. You're like, okay, I'm watching 3 plays. It's.
So you can watch 3 things poorly or 1 thing closely. It's hard.
And this is the cool thing, though, for anybody who's never been to camp. Like, when you ever see all these, it's like I'm sitting here like live tweeting, refreshing like every 5 seconds. Like, you're like, and then by the time you go down to, correct an error, you miss something else. So it's like you just.
Yeah. And so when people are like, how come you and so had slightly different stats in practice? Like, do you understand how hard it is to actually write everything down? That's why Javon Kinlaw keeps saying, hey, make sure you got this. Like, dude, I'm constantly writing in practice. So Poe needs to play center like tomorrow. They got to find out if he can snap, because he's definitely built like one for sure. Maybe if he's a practice squad project, teach him.
I'll get that Poe chanted starting in the stands, man. They're going to Skull. I'm doing it. Poe. Where did you get that going? There's a lot of Niner fans out there, by the way.
What is the skull thing? What is that?
What?
What is skull?
Skull?
Yeah. What is that?
I mean,
what is that?
In high school, I knew of being like that,
SKOL,
mid-tier tobacco, but like in the school for the Vikings, it was like,
right.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. And they do it though. Like they'll come to these schools and they do the, and I've lived here 22 years. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I cheer for the Vikings. I'm not playing the Niners. It's like, I'm around Vikings fans. I've never understood that either, but they like it. They do the horn before the games. They got a great fan base. They really do. They love it.
It feels kind of like a college football fan base.
Well, it has to be because the Gophers,
right,
although we just got a new stadium, we got, PJ Fleckrow on the boat and doesn't recruit.
I still can't believe they said no to Trey Lance. Who is their quarterback that they said no to Trey Lance?
That tells you everything.
You're Minnesota.
It's Tanner Morgan. And
what the hell is that?
A guy that was allegedly supposed to be a day 2 guy after his freshman year. And then much like Brock Purdy, Tanner Morgan and Brock Purdy, 2 guys that played 4 years that regressed throughout their college careers.
Good job,
and so, that tells you everything you need to know about PJ Fleck, that you had Trey Lance in-house and you let him go.
That should be the number one thing on his resume. Didn't think Trey Lance was a quarterback.
Yeah.
Ryan D says, how did the run game do against Minnesota? We just talked. It's really hard to judge it. What I do want to say is Elijah Mitchell's still not practicing. So it was a lot of Jeff Wilson and Trey Sermon. Those 2 are the ones getting split in reps. And then with Ty Davis Price, for a guy that I think has terrible hands, they like throwing him screen passes. I think he may have a role in the offense as like the guy who gets the screens out of the backfield.
And we've seen guys like, Jonathan Taylor was a guy that allegedly, came into the league that didn't have stuff. I'm getting feedback on yours or not, but that didn't come in with pass catching chops.
Oh, okay.
And was a guy that like went in and nobody thought could catch the ball. And now you're seeing that actually is not the case. I do think your analysis though on TDP not being the guy right now is true, but like I think they just need to keep practicing that, because one thing I did notice with him today is that he is a physical dude. Everybody knows that. Like there was a play today where you don't know if it was going to be a tackle at 3, but he bowls through some guys and like he makes you feel him. And it's like so. Yeah. And he can hit the corner. He has a gear that he's not slow.
Yeah.
And so
he's not elusive, but if you get him a little space with a screen, he might just go 65 yards. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So a lot of Vikings fans today were asking me, "Hey, where's Elijah Mitchell?" I said, "It's a good question. I mean, I don't know." And
he's
so
always hurt.
Yep.
He's always hurt. And the Niners Kyle's never had back-to-back rushing leaders ever. So odds are it's going to be someone other than
Jordan Mason.
I love Jordan Mason so much. Here's the thing. I'm not a big Trey Sermon fan. You said that Ty Davis Price is not afraid of contact. I'm not going to say Trey Sermon's afraid of contact, but he's not the kind of guy where you watch him play and you're like, oh, that guy just loves contact. Like he's always kind of dancing. And I just much prefer Jeff Wilson Jr. I think they're similar, but give me Jeff Wilson.
Brother, I had an argument ad nauseum about Jeff Wilson and with some people that I'm not going to mention, but the idea that what was this, that they said, I said, for a guy who's your RB4, he's been a steady contributor throughout his entire career. And somebody box score scouted some carry or whatever else. Exactly. This is a guy who has, when called upon, has actually won. How many RB4s in the league can say they've won a couple football games for their team before?
He's so much better. He's definitely an RB2 in this league, borderline RB1. Here's the thing. Everyone loves Elijah Mitchell. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry last year on a big workload. That's great. The year before, Jeff Wilson Jr. averaged 4.8 and had 10 touchdowns. Hell of a player. He just is an upright runner who takes hits, but also gives them out.
And that's why I'm not going to lie. I never get too worried about running back. I know it was an issue this year, but I will say this too.
Yeah.
Debo. No, they're not going to go and say you're going in between the tackles. And I know the incentives in this contract aren't just crazy, but they're not going to stop this whole idea that, Debo didn't like his usage as an offensive weapon. I guarantee you that's not the case. And Debo's going to be getting touches out of the backfield. It's going to happen. They're not going to sit there and put him in a glass case and just say, we don't.
Oh no, he's definitely going to get those.
And
if he wants to score touchdowns and make money, he'll play running back.
And today he was targeted quite a bit, and he was, for the first time in a while, he's got back in there. And it's like I said, once you guys see this, it's going to be really hard. It's going to pick your poison. That's why I don't know if it's going to be real easy. I'm not a fantasy nut, but I play. It'll be one of those things where I think week to week you're going to see one week it's Debo, the other week it's Ayuk. Danny gets a couple, Kittle gets fed. It's going to be, and that's the way it should be.
They're going to have games where they throw 19 times. So, I mean, you might want to invest more in this run game than pass game. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Max says, what's the deal with JC Treader? Why hasn't anyone signed him? He's older. He got cut by his previous team. I don't know what his injury history is. And he's president of the Players Association, and he wrote an essay this offseason saying that all players should have fully guaranteed deals. So maybe that's what he's looking for.
That and yeah, like you said, I mean, he's older and he's been hurt,
Yep.
and he does have some. I think I don't remember if it was a back or what exactly the issue was, but like there's some chronic, injury potential there, and it couldn't hurt if you're bringing in on, then the Niners could afford it. But at this point, August 17th, granted, it's still 3+ weeks before the home opener, but you're going to want to get some reps in. And I'm not saying he can't come in and play. He would fit the scheme. He understands what, but not saying it won't happen, but I don't think it will.
LA Faithful says, what the hell ever happened to Alfredo Gutierrez? He's still there. He said he's not technically on the team. He's not even technically on the practice squad. He doesn't take up an official spot, but they've been developing him for more than a year.
Yeah.
And he's improved a lot. Like last year, he's big. He's 6'9". Last year, he couldn't block anyone in anything in one-on-one at all. I mean, these are NFL pass rushers.
Right.
Now he's actually wins a lot of reps in the one-on-ones. So, I mean, give him credit. I don't know if he'll ever make the team, but he's definitely improving.
No, and that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think I might have didn't know I had the same question. I hadn't thought about Alfredo Gutierrez there for a little bit. So
he's not like a waste of their time. Clearly, they feel like he has a little potential, and I'm sure they have nothing but time. They got years they can take to develop him. So we'll see what happens. I like watching him do his thing. Dark horse to make the 53.
You go first. I think I got a couple.
Yeah. Dark horse to make the 53. I guess that sixth wide receiver is going to be a dark horse, whoever that is. Could be Snead, could be Keyshawn Johnson.
Will they take 6?
I don't know. Why do you need 6 if you're going to run the ball 45 times a game?
And my thing is, I don't think you need a roster of 6 who's going to be inactive when they could find you can get a veteran to come. I don't think
develop a guy every week from the practice squad to be your sixth wide receiver who's inactive.
Yeah. One guy that I don't think it's a dark horse question for a reason. So that means I'm not really banking on this, but Curtis Robinson, I don't think it'll happen. If somebody goes down and gets special teams utility, I feel like he's fairly athletic. The young guy. I'm wondering. Yeah, I still feel like there's potential for the Niners to make interesting moves. They're one of those teams. I don't think they feel like they're that far away. I feel from what I've been told, like they're a team that feels that they don't have that many holes. Now, offensive line, clearly, like
they have some clear holes, but they don't have that many.
Right. But that's not the offensive line isn't
easily
remedied by like, oh, we're just going to sign a right tackle. And that just doesn't happen in free agency unless it's like, and you're going to be throwing the farm at them. So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So maybe I don't think Robinson makes it. I don't think there's going to be here's my safe response. I don't think there's going to be big surprises. I think that it's going to, other than like Grant, what you said about the 6th receiver, I think things are going to go pretty chalk.
I would agree. Okay. Danny Gray has been improving in camp. He doesn't dominate practices with 5 or 6 catches, but every other day he'll catch a touchdown, a really long one, and that's why they brought him in. It's funny, they don't even it's not like he's not getting open, or they just call deep shots for him. He's not getting the ball, but you realize Kyle's going to call this at some point today. That's his job, and today he caught it 7-on-7, really nice. And when he wins by a lot. I mean, he plays hella fast. Yeah. And again, I don't know if he's going to be a starter like Emmanuel Sanders or like a complete receiver, but taking a guy that late in the draft, if he can do this, it could be a successful pick. What do you see from Danny Gray?
I love it. And when I went, Jesse and I know Marco Martinez, we did a live show on the draft when it happened. That was my pick at that last pick of the 3rd round. I wasn't picking TDP before that, but but no, I think for what he does, he was my 10th rated receiver in a good receiver class in this draft. Oh, and to get him in a stacked receiver class at that point, to have him come in, what I wrote about earlier this week is what he's again another confident guy. You get him in front of a mic, he's not one of those guys. It's like, yeah, he has swagger, but it's not like this unfounded kind of machismo that's just like, I'm better than anybody. I feel like they got to say, like, he really believed that's how he is. And then when he's in games, like he's shown already in practices and in games in the big moment, he's making those big plays, and he's getting open. I felt like in the game he only had 2 catches, but like 99 yards. Right? There are other situations where that one outplay to the timing was a little bit off. People are arguing about whether it was a little bit late, whether it was a little bit wide.
Days. Yeah. Let it go.
I know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I know it doesn't. So it's like those little things like Danny Gray's getting open. Like, and that's what's really cool is to see. It's like he's not just going to be a vertical threat. Like he is going to be a guy that can be at other levels of the field, and he's not going to be expected to. Now, talking to some other people I trust, I still feel, despite I really have big hopes for Danny Gray. I don't know if you are banking on him being like this bona fide wide receiver 3, like a 2B kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so if Ayuk goes down, if Debo goes down, do the Niners really have if one of those guys, not everybody else, and people will say, well, that's every team. Well, that's true, but we're nitpicking.
Okay? Ray's not a starter. Juwan's not a starter. Danny's not a starter. They're all great, some number 3 receivers who can play in specific situations, but not every snap.
No, and because I look at a guy like Juwan Jennings, who got a lot of run last year from fans, and I think he's a really tough guy, a fun guy to cheer for, but he's not. He doesn't have the game-breaking speed. People talk about he's a big slot like an Anquan Bolden. He's been having trouble catching the ball.
And he's going to lose snaps to Ray because Ray is a big part of this offense.
Yeah, and everybody knows that Ray has fumbled in the past. But again, I'll tell you this. You can't have that, but I'd rather have a guy that has the ability to be a playmaker consistently.
And he can contribute in the run game.
Happen, you can go in Kyle's doghouse because Kyle's not immune to putting somebody there. But, yeah, I know. Danny Gray, I really love him. I think he's exceeded expectations for a third-round compensatory pick, and I don't think it's fair to say he's going to be a game breaker every Sunday. But
let me say what I like about Danny Gray. Whether or not he's a starter, he's the first Niners wide receiver I can remember that legitimately is a burner. Growing up as a fan when I was a kid, I've followed these guys, this team's drafts every year since I was a kid, and every time they draft a wide receiver, it's like, well, he runs a 4.5, but it's but Jerry Rice ran a 4.6. It's like, no, you need, and it's like, oh, this guy's really fast. He runs a 4.48. No, the fastest guy they ever got was AJ Jenkins, and none of that speed ever translated. So to actually see the Niners draft a guy who runs a 4.33 and it shows, I'm like, damn, what have they been doing the last 25 years? Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's what I want to make very clear. I was not ragging on Danny Gray. I absolutely love Danny Gray. I really do. I've wrote about it. I've tweeted a lot about it. What I'm saying is what I didn't think was fair is that I don't think it's. I mean, if he wants that pressure, awesome. I just don't think that he needs to be looked at as a guy that has to go carry the team on his back as that top end receiver. The team isn't expecting him to. So what I'm saying, I'd be nice to. Yeah, where he factors in on regular, how many snaps do you think Danny Gray is going to get, Grant?
Early on, not a lot. But I think here's the thing. What he showed in this game Friday is that he can get open. He's not just like a run-by-you guy. He won on dig. He won on the out route. He actually seems like a good route runner. I don't know if he can beat press coverage. Maybe not yet. I mean, I've seen him get locked up a little bit by Jimmy Ward in camp. But if you put him in the slot, if you give him a free release, he's tough. And if he can just catch the ball consistently, because he does kind of try to catch the ball with his chest a lot of the time. So did Emmanuel Sanders. I've seen him clank some balls off his chest, but I've also seen him make really difficult catches with his hands. So he has potential. I like him. Better more than I thought I would.
And you can't coach confidence. That's the thing. I've always told people, I'm not a football coach, but I've one thing I've always said about players or athletes that I've really leaned on is that their confidence that you can nurture it, but you can't really coach that ability to believe in yourself when other people aren't. And I think that's a guy that I think it's really cool to see from him. And I think it's a refrain for this whole class. I was really impressed from Friday night. And that's one thing I have to commend, the 49ers and Adam Peters and their scouting department is that knock on wood, it's early, but I feel like they helped themselves out because the last 2 drafts, they've drafted a lot of guys on a team that allegedly didn't have many holes. They kind of filled the cabinet, and these guys are going to maybe all make the team outside of a couple of them.
When you talk about confident guys, it's interesting. Trey Lance, Javon Kinlaw, Danny Gray, Brandon Ayuk, 3 of those guys were junior college guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trey Lance got shut out. They said he couldn't be a quarterback. So these are guys who had to bet on themselves at a young age before they had any money. Yep. So Thomas says, any free agent you think that could possibly fix the O-line issues? That's the problem. It's hard finding street free agents who are good at this point because they're street free agents for a reason. They already brought in the best right tackle street free agent, Jordan Mills.
Yeah.
They already did that.
And I just don't think. I mean, I have to rack my brain. It's a good question. I don't know who's available. If you've got an offensive lineman, if there's somebody available at this point on the O line, typically that's not an upgrade.
Notice the SF Niners started copying your videos. Is that true? That's too bad. He shouldn't do that. He doesn't have my permission to do that. Don't do that. Stop. Cease and desist. Okay, the defensive line. You saw it in person, up close. What was your impression?
Defensive lineman?
Yeah.
Name that keeps, obviously, nobody even needs to really talk about. Nick Bosa is, it looks like he's in the best shape of his life. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a problem. Anybody, you get him on the front of a microphone, it seems like all they want to talk about is just like, I don't want to block this guy. So we know that. Kamoko Toure is a name that came up on Friday. Didn't get him in my winners on Friday. I wanted to. Granted, you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's against sometimes 2s, 3s, and 4s, right? But here's a guy who is been a situational pass rusher, came out of Rutgers as a incredible athlete, still an incredible athlete, and he's showing power. He's showing technique. He is consistently getting the quarterback. He would have had at least 2 sacks today. And
I want to just think about Kamoko real quick because I've been tough on him. He struggles in the one-on-ones because he doesn't bend very well. But what we saw in the preseason game is he's a really good run defender. He's a lot like Ebukam. He's really strong for a guy who's 255. He will run. He will make plays from the backside, running all the way across the field. So he can make the team just based on run defense. But he's also very powerful for a guy who doesn't. I mean, Ebukam doesn't bend either, but he's got second effort. He's strong. He's relentless. Kamoko's a good player.
No, and I remember that play against the Packers where he shot inside and basically on his back, shouldered 2 offensive linemen, pushing them back and didn't end up getting the tackle itself, but allowed other guys to do it. And that's the kind of thing that's impressive. If you've got a guy that is maybe, build his paychecks on being a pass rusher that's able to do that. Kyle likes that. Kyle wants that. Other guys along the line, I thought Drake Jackson got in there a couple times. There's been a little bit of a ding on him for how he's been doing a run on camp. I haven't been there at camp to see that. I thought before he had that shoulder, that's another thing I totally forgot about. He had that shoulder stinger, or I think it was not even quite that bad. So to have him out in full pads going today, rotating him with the ones, that's encouraging, by the way. So that I think defensive line, and then it's just some waves. Omenahu. I wasn't watching Hyder as much today. I'm going to look a little bit at that tomorrow. But
Hyder's the one-on-one god. He's so good at that. That's how he keeps himself employed. Just watch him in the one-on-one drills.
And that's great. And I know Hyder had a lot of cleanup sacks that year before he went to Seattle. And
he's crafty.
Yeah. So, defensive line is great. I thought the linebacking core in drills and coverage, that's one thing where I think a lot of people are saying it's the consensus that, Aziz and Fred and Dre Greenlaw make up, comprise one of, if not the best linebacking core in the NFL. And in coverage, closing ground. I thought I thought Dre Greenlaw did a good job today in that regard. I thought in drills, Aziz made some good PBUs. So if Jimmy Ward is out, it's going to be paramount to have those linebackers being reliable in coverage. And then also it was hard to see with Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley not playing today and Jimmy Ward out. It's hard to evaluate your secondary when you're doing that.
Hard to impossible. California Bear says Jimmy is garbage. He benefited from a good team. He never took accountability for being garbage. All he did was smile and say, we have to do better. Well, that's true. He never went in front of the camera and was like, I'm garbage. He should have.
Let me tell you a quick story, California Bear. I'm walking out of training camp today, and there were some guys, some fans in Niners gear, and it was like this elementary school teacher explaining to Vikings fans about who Jimmy Garoppolo was for the first time. And she was like, well, we don't really like him, but he's hot. And I was just like, I have a tendency sometimes to be blunt, and I just walked away. So
funny. But it's so true. Matt H says, is Jason Poe better than Banks? Well, I'm curious. In the one-on-one drills, he is, but that's not real football. So let's give Banks a chance. I'm not writing off Banks yet. Banks is like he's like two Jason Poes. So
yeah, and in drills, like you said, man, it's like going to the Senior Bowl and everybody's these drills, and people think like, oh, football is not
right.
I mean, there are one-on-one situations. I mean, I think like you're on the edge. That's a little bit, but like inside, yeah, you're playing as a unit. You're at different levels. It's not always that. Now you can't lose.
That being said, though, if Aaron Banks can't anchor
right.
and he's going up against, Aaron Donald or whomever, it's going to show. So, Banks, we'll see. We'll find out. I got a bonus topic for you. I didn't run this one by you, but this is something I've been thinking about. The injuries. This happens every year. The training camp injuries. Like, what is the deal with this? Because, I mean, maybe it's just nostalgia, but I don't remember these when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, it was as many. When I was a kid, it was 2 a days. I mean, a lot more work. So what is the deal? And I think what people don't realize or remember is back in the day, there were more players in camp. Now it's 90. Yep. But if someone's hurt, it goes down to 80. I mean, it dwindles. And back in the day, it was like 100 to 125. And that just it would prevent players from having to do too many reps back to back. And so why'd they get away from that? Because it's in their interest, right? Well, the coaches would like it, but the owners don't want to pay for it. And then the vets just look at that as extra competition. Everything the vets have pushed for in the CBAs have been fewer players on teams, fewer practices, fewer time at tasks, and a rookie wage scale. Everything benefits them, but they're the ones who, frankly, get hurt in training camp. So I think it's hurt the product, and I think a lot of it is the players' fault, but it's also the owners too. They actually both want it this way, and I think it has a bad side effect.
The positive side, if I was even going to, this isn't even qualify as devil's advocate, but I will say this: the injuries sustained thus far, at least, have not been of the severe variety. We haven't had. Now I shouldn't.
No Achilles, no ACL, right? Because those happen. Those do happen,
and probably something will, because I said, but things happen. And again, 31 other teams, they get guys that are going through the grind too. And guys are bigger, faster, stronger. They do take care of their bodies, but I think
that's also another thing too, is like compared to 30 years ago, these players do so much more independent stuff that actually they may be overtraining a lot of the time.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was getting at. And so as a coach who was like a endurance coach, we talked about periodization of, as you were a runner, like track runner. I was a track and cross country coach. And those are the things, like most of the guys I remember at a younger level, these guys are doing too much. And everybody always thinks that an athlete always thinks like more is better. And it's not. And rest matters. And I think the science of rest and sleep and periodizing to the point where you're refreshed. I'm not saying I'm not going to make any hot take about why or why not. But I do think that, as you said, though, Grant, especially as you get older, and now granted, these guys aren't 40 years old like me, but they're sitting here it's harder your body recovers slower. And so
but I'm saying, if there's 125 players in camp, these players get more rest. And so why don't they want that? Well, it's more competition. It's more jobs. And these vets, they want a couple more years. Put yourself in the mind of a 32-year-old vet. I want 2 more years.
No,
and so
I completely agree.
If there's fewer practice hours, it's harder to develop my replacement. I know the system. He doesn't. How are you going to go with him when you can't even practice?
I mean, I'm a labor guy. I'm a union negotiator for my teachers. I hear you, man. I think that's the difference between being a teacher and a professional athlete is playing the game and negotiating a CBA is about looking after the veterans. Right. And looking after,
because they're the ones that negotiate the deal. They're the ones that are in power in the CBA.
So I hadn't thought about that. I think it's a good point.
But I want to make it clear, I'm not making an excuse for Kyle. It sounds like I am, like it's out of his control. This is the way it is for every coach and every team. The Niners got to not be the team that's more affected by this than everyone else, because it feels like they are. I don't have the numbers, but I think the numbers bear it out that they're usually at the top of the league in these.
They have been at least
in general.
They have been at least the last 2 to 3 seasons, and I think that. Again, what is, knock on wood, encouraging is that nothing seems like we've had anything. Well,
agree.
Aside from Jimmy Ward's hamstring injury, which I know we didn't get to talk about, but that is my biggest concern.
today, I always do the good and the not so good. I kind of felt like doing the entire report, just being like the good. 1, no one got hurt. End of report. Like that's it. No one got hurt.
I like it.
Successful day. Because really, that's really what you want to get accomplished in these things is don't get hurt.
Well, and I think that's where Kyle has always said practice reps are more important than preseason. Right. No starters are going on Saturday. I hope, maybe you disagree. I don't need to see Trey Lance against Houston in the preseason. I just feel like you've gotten the game against the Packers. You're doing these joint practices against the Vikings. Is it really that essential? Is that really gonna push you over the top for the rest of the season? And again, I'm just throwing that out there.
All I know is he better not play in this game on Saturday because I'm not going. I'm flying back Friday. Kyle said that the starters weren't going to play, so I booked my trip to come home. I don't want to be away for 5 nights. I'm like, this is enough. So he's going to change his mind on me. I'm going to feel whatever. How long will Mitchell be out? They were saying he might come back this week, but it doesn't look like he will. It looks like the 2 guys who are the closest coming back are Armstead and Mosley. They were in uniform today warming up.
I think Mitchell showed enough early in camp. From what I was told, you could disagree.
No, he's good.
I think the Niners have shown also that they are, once these things do happen, especially if they're soft tissue, I think Mitchell's is also hamstring related.
Yeah.
And I know people don't like to hear about it, but like fans that hear these hamstrings and they think like, oh, come on, suck it up. Like, dude, you can't suck it up.
No.
And you've been a runner. I've had a hamstring tear during a big race. Like, it's not fun. And so like these guys, it sounds like his is just a very minor strain, not even a tear. So same Jimmy Ward though, when they said pretty bad, that makes me think that there's at least a small tear. You know, maybe it's even if it's an inch, like it's bleeding.
You know what that sounds like? Being 31 years old. Jimmy,
yeah,
I love you, man. But dude, doesn't it suck? It sucks. You just wake up and things hurt.
And that's where I'm not. If he's got a tear now, I'm not making any crystal ball predictions, but I think this is going to be a year where he's in and out of the lineup.
That's just what happens with football players, in my opinion. Like they have this great career, and then all of a sudden that first injury happens, and it's just. And I'm always skeptical, like with the 28, 29-year-olds. You know, like what's your future? Is it going to keep happening?
Well, if I piggyback on that real quick.
Sure.
Jimmy Ward is a guy the Niners love. He's a lifetime Niner.
Yeah.
He's 31 years old.
Yeah.
He's hurt again.
Yeah.
And Jaquaski Tart, a guy they could have afforded to keep.
Right. $800K.
Running with the threes in Philly right now.
Philly. Wow.
Now, so that is a position that they feel they will need to be addressed. Now, I feel that going forward, that's like they got Travarius Ward. Whatever they do with Emmanuel Mosley's position, if they feel like he's really balling out and get him long-term, their linebacking core, their defensive line, those safety positions are something that I think the Niners are going to be. They know they didn't address it in the draft. Everybody thought they would. I'm just saying, like, don't be surprised to see movement there earlier than people might think. And this might be, and I'm not speaking like Jimmy, don't come after me for this, because I'm honestly probably the biggest Jimmy Ward stan. But I just feel like it's age conflated with injury, contract. This might be his last year.
It's a cold business, man. I mean, He's a 31-year-old DB who's hurt and a free agent next year. I mean, you don't have to be a freaking football expert to figure out what's probably.
No, that's not slander either. That's just like pocket
he knows
shot.
That.
Yeah,
he knows that. But again, talk about you can't fake confidence. He is the most confident person.
100%.
Yeah, so I don't think he's tripping on it. He knows.
But that's why.
Yeah.
But Grant, that's also why I said you have Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. I think that Jimmy Ward's absence, outside of Nick Bosa, I feel like Jimmy Ward is the most important part of that defense, and to have him out for any, and I'm glad Travarius Ward is there, but having Jimmy Ward out is a big deal.
It is.
And
Cameron Childress. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Cameron Childress says, did Samuel Womack get reps with the ones today? I think that's what you might have wanted to say.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Yes. No, I didn't see him match up with.
He was in and out making plays. He had another PBU today. I think I tweeted that out today. It's like a big surprise. Talk about another confident dude. He's looked lights out on Friday, but no, like he was. I'd have to go back and look at the drills. It's hard to kind of always get on, but he did have a PBU today.
Daniel Kelly is actually Jimmy G behind the screen. I think Jimmy G has more of a life than Daniel.
Yeah, I think as much as that, we need to give Jimmy G more credit than that.
Come on. Yeah. All right, that's the show. I gotta finish up my work out here and then go experience some downtown Minneapolis.
Minnesota.
Everyone says you gotta get a juicy Lucy burger, so I'm see if I can.
If you don't really.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. I'll be back tomorrow. Practice tomorrow. See you guys in.